Something that I think, something that the members of SPJ are really not exactly worried about, but focused on, and I know a lot of other journalism students are wondering is, do you think that the end of print journalism will be the end of real journalism?
I do worry about that a little bit because there's so many citizen journalism websites and so forth popping up everywhere. While we as newspaper journalists are trying to have more interaction with our readers and we are asking them to send us photos and stories and so forth, right now, it feels as though we're still kind of controlling how we're letting that information out. In the future, there could be issues, I think, with the whole citizen journalism idea, because we're having people out there gathering news who don't have the training, and maybe, journalism, I've always said, is one of those things that looks really easy. And everybody thinks that they can do it until you really get out there and do serious journalism. The whole accuracy element, I worry a little bit about. And I'm not saying it isn't being done well in certain places, but I think it's more difficult. That's my perspective, anyway.
Yeah, citizen journalism might almost be an oxymoron. I don't think. I think there's a question of credibility. I don't just worry about it. I think it's a real serious problem, perhaps. I'd be the first person to defend the right of free speech, which is what we're talking about with this. But there's a real credibility issue with online, particularly online, although any other platform presents the same problem. When we do studies, we find that people have perceived higher credibility of traditional media sources. So it's media themselves that have a track record that are going to be believed. So on the margins, citizen journalism gets more people involved, and I think that's healthy for communities. There is a online newspaper and a print one in both Lakewood and Cleveland Heights, I think government franchise the notion, that's largely citizen journalism, that has a journalist who tries to sort of marshal it. I think that's probably a healthy exercise. But I get the Sun delivered on the west side. They consolidate a lot of those. I still get that. I get the PD, and I can tell you that I certainly put more faith into what gets from the traditional media websites with someone who's a professional, as opposed to someone who has an agenda. And I work with community journalists, and some that are not very professional, and it's always a challenge to try and steer objectively to providing information to residents.
Well, I'd like to push back a little on the premise of Faith's question, which I believe was, with the end of print journalism, will we see the end of real journalism? While print journalism is a model that's under siege, I don't actually think we're going to see the end of print journalism. We are seeing huge upheaval among print journalists. But the same people who produce print journalism for the plain dealer are also putting out news online. And so they're practicing their real journalism across platforms. And so that is going to be something that we're going to continue to see growing. You're seeing, quote unquote, real journalists doing journalism in a variety of ways that they never had before. And there is something very exciting about that, because it gives us an opportunity to reach readers and viewers who might not want to pick up a traditional newspaper, but want to get their news in audio or video or other ways online. So we've got some real opportunity for real journalists to go ahead and reach new audiences. Now, there is no question, though, that we are going to continue to see consolidation among print publications. We just had the ABC report out with circulation figures. They were down considerably. I have to say that while we were down also, we were not down nearly as much as a lot of other papers, so we have moved up on the list. We are now the 16th largest newspaper in the country. I'm not getting out the balloons and the cake because, it was sort of that everybody else did a lot worse. But, we are definitely seeing changes, but I'm not going to declare the end of real journalism or print journalism.
Nor am I. I think that what's going to happen is that the brands, the news organizations that you know from the print world, are going to migrate year by year towards online journalism, and then they're going to become brands that are trusted. For instance, there was a debate in media news circles recently because Bill Keller, the editor of the New York Times, admitted that for the first time he spent a few weeks straight reading the New York Times online and not the New York Times in print, and said that he still preferred the print product. Well, other people jumped in and said, actually, that's how most people are consuming the New York Times now, or at least that's how most of its New York, outside of New York audience is consuming it. And so for a lot of us who have been reading the New York Times online for years, it's like, why isn't Bill Keller reading it online? Doesn't he care enough about how it comes out, that how we're consuming it? So that's a sign of how as fewer people decide to pick up the print product, you're still going to have the same organizations. They'll be transformed and they'll be online, but that's one way that real journalism is going to survive and make the transition.
I echo Eric's sentiments. True journalism will never go away. People are always going to go and look for accurate information and credible sources, but it's what platform are they going to do it on? And the marketplace is going to drive that. And that's what the industry has been challenged and dealing with right now. And I guess I'll throw a question with a question and kind of just to show the hands in the room. Who here goes for their information strictly online as their primary source? How about in the print version? Did you see the smiles here?
Yeah.
How about from a radio and TV perspective? It's changing, and you got to be able to adapt, and that's the element of this. The industry and the marketplace is going to drive all this, and on the business side, we have to be prepared and be ahead of that curve.